This episode of the PC Perspective Podcast is brought to you by Casper, an online retailer of premium mattresses for a fraction of the price, because everyone deserves a great night's sleep. Get $50 off any mattress purchase by visiting casper.com/PCPer and enter code PCPer. Hey everybody, welcome to the PC Perspective Podcast. This is episode 402, being recorded on June 1st, 2016. I'm Ryan Shrout.
I'm Jeremy Hellstrom.
I'm Josh Walrath.
I'm Allyn Malventano.
I'm Sebastian Peak.
You know, I guess I'm recording this in the future, because where I'm recording this, it is June 2nd.
Yeah.
So,
which means I missed my credit card payment.
Oh, no. That's unfortunate. So I already know everything that we're going to talk about. I've been here. I've done that. I'm still over in Asia. I didn't go to Computex, clearly. I guess not clearly. But I stayed on the special administrative region of Macau, which is where AMD had their tech day, where we'll talk about the Radeon RX 480 and the Polaris stuff here in a little bit. It is very hot and it's very humid. What's the weather like at home, guys?
Raining.
Oh, yeah?
Yep.
It be raining.
Be raining.
Later
like
tonight,
60
I start
degrees here.
60?
60.
Whoa.
Laramie, what do you expect?
It's a heat wave.
Yeah.
That's true.
It's hot.
Melted all the snow.
It was like 85 yesterday. I haven't bothered to look at what it is today. And about 120% humidity. Can you do that? Can you go above 100% humidity, or is that just called rain?
No, yeah,
I think it's just called rain.
You can go over it. Fog.
Yeah. It was a point yesterday where it was hard to see, and it's not smog. It's just water in the air that makes it difficult to see through. So we've got a lot of stuff to get to today, and we'll try to do it as quickly as possible, I guess. And as long as my internet holds up, I'll continue to kind of host a podcast here. Let's start with the GeForce GTX 1070, I guess.
You're just jumping right into the reviews.
I'm going to skip all the other stuff. We've got too much other stuff to get to. We subscribe to our list. Go to our Patreon page.
Yeah.
If you subscribe to Patreon or contribute during the show recording, I will read your name during the live stream, which I already have one, so I guess I'll do that as well. Jared Pavy pledged $9.99.
$9.99.
Which I believe is in celebration of Josh. So we greatly appreciate that. Did you see Johnny's leather jacket, by the way, Josh?
That was a sweet leather jacket. It's like he one-upped Jensen Huang in terms of quality and style of leather jackets. I mean, it really was more Matrix, and you thought Carrie-Anne Moss would be coming out and helping him describe the beautiful, wonderful products that he's selling for $9.99.
Does anybody know who the girl was that was like the host of the event? I had never seen her before, but she came out and she was dressed in like a leather jacket and spandex pants and these like red leather half gloves. And I was like, oh, this is going to be one of those kinds of press conferences, isn't it? And then Johnny comes out in a leather jacket, and then the Intel guy comes out in like a full leather trench coat. And I was like, yeah, okay.
I mean,
this is one of those types of things.
Just think about the weather. They were obviously need to be wearing leather in Taiwan right about now.
Yeah.
It's like insulation, though, right? It's like when you see people who are out working in the sun where they're wearing long sleeve shirts and long pants and like a hat with a cover over their whole body. They're doing it for insulation. They're trying to keep the sun away from them. And I think that's what they were doing with the heavy leather materials.
Yes.
So, okay, now let's get into the reviews and stuff. We'll go ahead and jump into the GTX 1070. This is a video card that was announced several weeks ago when they announced the GTX 1080, and now we actually have it. Quick rundown on the specs is that it is the same GP104 GPU, slightly cut down. You're looking at 1920 CUDA cores instead of 2560. You're running at 100 megahertz lower rated clock speed. Cut down on texture units equivalent to the GPU cores. Your ROP units stay the same as on the GTX 1080, so you still have a 256-bit memory interface. It's running GDDR5 instead of GDDR5X. but it is running at 8 gigahertz or 8 gigabits per second. 150 watt TDP, 5.7 teraflops, and obviously still built on that 16 nanometer process. Now it has two prices, of course. You have your $379 MSRP, and you have your $499 Founders Edition. So the same debate exists for the 1070 that existed for the 1080. In terms of, do you consider the Founders Edition to be the real price? Do you consider MSRP to be the real price? When and how many cards will we actually see come in at the $379 price? I am still basing my assumptions on two things. One, that the Founders Edition will be the only card available day one. And two, that the other cards will be available at some point at $379. It may take several weeks, and I've seen lots of people in comments of this story and on the RX 480 story saying, "Oh, you can't, the 1070 or the 1080 selling for $100 over, and it's $900 on Amazon," and all that is absolutely true. But I think what we're looking at is the initial excitement move to get product, and not really like where we're actually settle at. So keep that in mind as we kind of discuss, I guess. The card is identical. The Founders Edition card's the same as the 1080. No changes here. Still 1.8 power. Overclocking wise, I got this card up to 1987. So maybe 50 megahertz less than the GTX 1080. It's a second page there, Allyn. That's pretty impressive. Again, knowing that the base clock is 1506, I think, and we were able to overclock it to a point. I think I was using a plus. What was the offset there? Plus 175, I think, which resulted in a measured core clock of 1987. So almost 2 gigahertz, but not quite 2 gigahertz. So pretty impressive metrics there in terms of headroom. Still figuring some stuff out. I didn't have a whole lot of time with this card before I left to come to the AMD event. But like the power target seems to be variable based on the card, according to what some of the other stuff I'm seeing says. Mine was able to go up to 112%. We'll see what the cards out in the Great Wild Markets show. These are supposed to be on sale on June 10th, I believe. In terms of performance, this is a 20% reduction from the GTX 1080 or so. And it is if you compare your two cards, you're going to compare it to the most are probably the GTX 980, GTX 970. It is a significant jump over the 970. We're talking like 50 to 70% over the GTX 970, and probably 30 to 40% over the GTX 980. So, it depends obviously on game to game. It is a very close equivalent match to the performance of a GTX 980 Ti. So, more or less, the performance you're getting out of a 980 Ti is going to be the performance that you get out of the GTX 1070. Keeping in mind that the 980 Ti was launched at $649 and was selling at $649 up until a few weeks ago. This card will launch at $379 for MSRP and then $449 for the Founders Edition. So you get you're getting a pretty good improvement in performance for your dollar. If you compare it to the AMD side, you've got like the R9 Nano is $499 and the R9 390X is $389 or so, and you're looking at anywhere from 25 to 50% faster than the R9 390X at significantly lower power. That's actually an interesting thing. If you look at the second to last page, Allyn, the PC Perspective adaptive power testing or advanced power testing, I'm sorry, the like the first graph there that looks at Tomb Raider up a little bit. Nope, you went too far.
The first graph.
Oh, sorry.
The first graph.
You're going for the charts.
There you go. That yellow line at the top is the power consumption of the R9 390X. That's about 275 watts. The GTX 1070 is the blue line all the way at the bottom, which is registering at about 145 to 150 watts. And then the GTX 970 is maybe 5 watts higher than it. It's the orange line. So you're getting, if you compare performance per watt is always one of these metrics people talk about. The 1070 is 50% faster or so than the 970, but is using 5 watts less power. But if you compare it to that yellow line, like it's 50% faster than the R9 390X or 40% faster than the R9 390X, and it's using 120 watts less power or something like that. So clearly, AMD at a disadvantage at this particular price point for performance like that.
Gosh, and who would have thought that a process technology jump of essentially 2 generations in one shot would give you performance like this?
I mean, I expected it to be better, but I honestly didn't expect it to be this much better, right? It's impressive how they've done it. Now, the same or similar process node advantage or improvement should be seen when you go to AMD's 14 nanometer with Global Foundries, we think. But you have to see how it is in actual and how it's realized, right? So I don't want to spend a whole lot more time on the 1070 because we have so much other stuff to talk about. But I mean, do you guys have any questions, concerns? Do you think it's pricing? We always get this group of people ever since I guess it was the 980 or was it the 780 that started it, where people assumed that this is actually a mid-range card that people are releasing as the high-end card, that NVIDIA is selling for the high-end card price. But we're still seeing pretty dramatic performance improvements. Generation over generation, power improvements, generation over generation. I still think that like the 1070, if it goes on sale and when it goes on sale for $379, is going to be like a really, really impressive card. Now, $379 is still a lot of money for most people for building a PC, but like if you're looking at VR, if you're looking at 25 by 14 or 3440 by 1440 ultra wides, the 1070 looks like kind of like the perfect match of performance for those groups.
Yeah, and they've got some overclocking that you can do to it as well, and some leg room. The 8 gigs of memory is good when you have the higher resolutions, or like maybe you've got 3 monitors. That would be kind of a nice update. Certainly, you don't have SLI or crossfire issues with a single card that is this much faster than, say, the 970 or the 390X. These are all big positive things for NVIDIA. It seems like it's a well-designed part. The engineers did a good job in getting clock speeds up as high as they have. Certainly, we're not seeing 2 gigahertz on most models, but 1500 megahertz up to 16.5 is you're getting some pretty good throughput. So it's a tempting product. When you look at the $379 price point. But, of course, you have to wonder how quickly are we going to see the partner designs on June 10th that will be at that point rather than the 449 Founders Edition, which will be probably the most common. And then the second thing you have to ask is how good will availability be for the next month after that? Will they be able to supply the market with all of the demands? Because $379 is a much easier pill to swallow than $699, $599 of the 1080. And then we have another variable that gets thrown in, and we can talk about that later.
But I was sniffing around. The cheapest one in stock on Amazon for a 1080 was $924 US.
Yeah, but like that always happens.
Yeah, that happens.
It always happens. And
yeah,
I'm just looking at going. Geez,
I mean, here's what I would say about that.
Canada's going to be hurting.
Don't pay attention to Amazon prices that are sold through resellers. It's like eBay pricing essentially. Pay attention to Newegg when they get them in stock. What are they selling for?
They don't.
I had a tweet last night from somebody that there were some Zotac ones that were in stock, and I don't remember what they were priced at, but they weren't like $800. So yeah, it's
there
always
were some MSI
like
ones
this at the
about
beginning.
2 hours ago, and they were $699.
Not bad.
Yeah,
but they
were sniffing around about the same time, and I couldn't find a single one in stock on Newegg anywhere, which is not shocking, right? This early in the game, that's not shocking. But the other thing I'm trying to do is keep an eye, because up here in Kazakhstan, it's not going to be that price. So I'm just sort of keeping an eye on what the pricing is doing down there, because we'll be delayed by about a month. That always takes longer for supplies to get up here and then for them to sell. Because, I mean, the 1070 is... I haven't been tempted to go NVIDIA in a long time, and looking at what this thing's doing and the theoretical price, that's pretty damn impressive.
Looks like on Newegg there is an MSI 1080 for sale in stock.
How much is it?
$699.
Is a Founders Edition?
Probably.
Click through.
Let's look. Yep.
Yep.
Founders Edition.
As expected.
Yep. Pretty much.
So I mean, you could have a valid argument about whether or not that's a good price, right? That the Founders Edition may be overpriced still, but
At least it's MSRP.
At least it's what they said
the
it was going to be. Right.
And if there's a silver lining here,
let's look on eBay.
it's that this higher price has slowed down demand so they could actually meet it, and people will quit complaining, hey, this is a paper launch.
I mean, I mean, keep in mind, like, I don't want to get too much into business school with you, but that's their goal, right? Their goal is to perfectly match price to demand so that they're selling everything that they produce. They don't want to have stuff on the shelf, and they don't want to have people angry that they can't buy the product. And so it sucks that they are raising the price essentially to gain access to their products. But it's the same mentality that everybody has, right? We'll talk about the $1,700 Broadwell-E processor, where clearly Intel has a lot of very intelligent people on their staff, I'm told, that justify that $1,700 price to a specific audience, and that they will sell what they make, or either that or they don't care. But NVIDIA definitely cares. So, and I think the same thing will happen with the 1070. I have a feeling that there will be more demand for the 1070 than there is for the 1080, just because you're saving $120 or $220. I'm sorry, on just like MSRP to MSRP. So, we'll see how that goes, and it's something that we will keep track of moving forward. It's kind of like the stock process or the stock state, I guess. Let's quickly jump over to Josh here, where he's going to tell us a little bit. I think we need to do a separate discussion about this sometime, and maybe get some of the ARM guys on with us, Josh.
Sure.
But give me a high level overview of what ARM talked about a few weeks ago and what it means.
I drank so much in between then and now that I just can't remember a damn thing.
Yeah, I know
So
that.
can we move on?
Yep.
No. Okay. So anyway, ARM announced multiple products. The three big ones are the A73, the Cortex A73. It's a new processor technology architecture that is aimed at providing higher peak performance, better performance, and lower power consumption than the previous A72. Now, the interesting thing here is that the A72 was designed by the folks in Cambridge, and the A73 is actually by the design group in France. And so there are some significant architectural differences. Like the A72 is a 3D code and I believe 3 wide architecture. The A73 is a 2D code and 2 wide superscalar architecture. They have focused on getting the highest overall performance they can get and still reducing power, and they do this by some really, really smart, solid work. I think essentially what you could say is they've kept clock speeds up high. They've shortened the pipeline, so it's 11 stages versus 14. They've kept clock speed again up there. I think I already said that. Anyway, and they work to really dramatically squash any kind of bubbles that go through the pipeline. So say you've got an instruction and you want to execute it, but it's waiting for something else to come through, and that instruction causes kind of a bubble in the pipeline where nothing is really done because there's an instruction waiting for more data to come in. So they've worked extensively on the front end to get that down. They've designed this for processes, I believe, 28 nanometers down to the latest 10 nanometer process from TSMC, which they should have silicon really, really soon from their test chips that utilize the A73 architecture. And we'll hopefully be hearing about that here in the next 3 or 4 months. I mean, they probably already have it in the labs, but they don't ever want to talk about it until they know everything works and is hunky-dory. So it's not a huge jump, but it's a significant jump. So you're looking at 30% less power for similar performance. You're looking about 15 to 20% more performance, the same power. When we're talking about workloads that the average mobile user is doing, which is increasing and increasing over time because there's more and more applications, more things they want to do. We're going to have cameras on cell phones that are more than 20 megapixels. People are going to do 4K video on their cell phones, and you've got to do a lot of these things, and it requires a lot of processor power. And plus, these phones are just getting thinner and thinner, and so the thermal envelopes are shrinking, and they've got to try to match next generation type performance, but still not going over this thermal envelope, and being able to enable the manufacturers to make thinner and thinner and more interesting looking devices that will sell through well and people will want to pay these premiums for. And so you can go into the article. I mean, there's a ton of stuff that they did to just the Cortex A73. Then we talk about the G71, the Mali G71. It's their next generation graphics technology. It again, I mean, if I could kind of wrap things up, and I won't exactly, but ARM is doing more with less. When you've got products that comprise billions of transistors, there's a lot of room for optimization and improvement with that many transistors. And so this is what they've done with not just the A73, but the G71. They've simplified some things. They've made some really, really smart moves, and they're optimizing the overall efficiency and the throughput of these products. So for like the G71, they've converted everything to quads, and it's still a Tyler architecture, which, as you well known from the old Videologic days, and I think I can't remember who else has Tyler. Imagination Technologies, obviously, who was Videologic. That it's highly memory efficient because they're so aggressive in culling of pixels that don't have anything to do with the final frame of the scene. And so they also have, they take workloads, they put them into quads. And the nice thing about these quads is you can rearrange when those are executed. That's a thing called clause. I think clause intervention. I can't remember exactly. There's many, many, many words in there. But the thing about quads is that all the pixels and the instructions there, they will have data that is adjacent to each other in main memory or cache memory. And so there's not a huge amount of memory bandwidth required to be able to handle the data needs of these quads. They go through the instruction. It's going to be next generation. It's Vulkan compliant. It can do OpenCL up and down, 2.0 and below, OpenGL 4.0 and below, OpenGL ES 3.0 and below. So it can handle all of these things. They've thrown out some other stuff like some texture compression technologies that haven't been used in ages. And so they've really optimized the product. They've shrunk it down. They've thrown out everything they don't need. They've really taken a look at the workflow, how they could get all of the data and the memory access as low as possible. And this is the use of the quads and the clause functionality. You're going to see these things scale up to 32 cores in a premium architecture. So the A73 Cortex, the Cortex A73, can do big little with the A53, I believe. Yeah. And so you can have 8 cores there, and then you can have up to 32 graphics cores, which each have, their own amount of cache. When you have that many cores together, your overall bandwidth increases. So it's going to be a higher powered product for these premium phones, but you're going to get performance that is about at the level of a discrete mobile graphics chip on a 2015 laptop, which is pretty significant when you're considering something that is 1.5 watts and below in overall TDP. The final thing is the CCI 550, which is the new next generation interconnect. Now, the thing about that is it provides the heterogeneous computing, the flat address space, the shared address space for memory, all these things that allow the CPU and GPU to interact more efficiently because it doesn't have to copy data back and forth from kind of the protected memory areas. All these things together, they're working to get it on 10 nanometer. First products should be manufactured by the end of this year, and they will be available by 2017. Now, there's a ton of information in there. It's like 32 charts and 4 pages worth of typing. So go check it out if you're the least bit interested in mobile technology, because there's a ton of stuff there. And ARM is being really aggressive, especially when we consider that Intel is essentially dropped out of the ultra mobile market, the sub 1,000 milliwatt market. We'll see what happens. I've got my own theories about why ARM is doing what they do, and we can go into licensing and stuff, but that just is a whole different ballgame. Was that just like one giant run-on sentence?
You're muted, Ryan.
Ryan, unmute. Damn it.
Am I unmuted now?
Yes.
So,
Oh. So all the witty commentary I had throughout your discussion wasn't coming through, huh?
Nope.
it did. We were just ignoring you.
That's what I expected, actually. Okay, well, thank you for that, Josh. I do think it's really interesting. I wish I'd been able to attend that event in person, but you seem to do a better job than me with that anyway. But let's go on to our sponsor for this week's episode. That's right. We are brought to you and sponsored by, I guess, Casper, the online retailer of premium mattresses that are a fraction of the cost. Casper is revolutionizing the mattress industry by cutting the cost of dealing with resellers and showrooms and passing the savings directly onto you. It is an obsessively engineered mattress at a very fair price. Casper combines 2 technologies, springy latex foam and supportive memory foam, to create an award-winning sleep surface with just the right sink and just the right bounce. It's a breathable design, helps keep you cool and regulate your temperature throughout the night. I have a Casper mattress. I'm not sleeping on it here. I didn't bring it with me to Macau, and I'm very disappointed about that. I really do enjoy sleeping on the mattress. It came at the perfect time when we were getting ready to have a kid, where sleep became much more important, and it shows when you have a new mattress. It really does make a difference. You can buy it easily online. It's completely risk-free. You can try sleeping on it for a 100-day period. Free delivery, painless returns within a 100-day period, so you don't have to lie down on a mattress in a showroom, where, as we all know, statistically, lying on a bed in a showroom has no correlation to whether it's the right bed for you. I know we all know that. Casper mattresses are made in USA, and you get free shipping and returns to the US and Canada, Jeremy, and Canada. You can get a Casper mattress for $500 for a twin or $950 for a king size. Comparing this to industry averages, that's a pretty outstanding price point, actually. You can save an additional $50 towards that mattress purchase by going to casper.com/PCPer and enter the promo code PCPer. That's casper.com/PCPer, promo code PCPer. Terms and conditions apply, as they usually do in life, and we thank Casper for their support of PC Perspective. All right.
Hopefully next year they'll deliver to Macau.
Yeah.
That way you can return it right after you're done.
I doubt I'm going to be back here next year. I mean, never say never, but I don't know. So let's talk about the next major review that came out. Intel launched kind of the long-awaited Broadwell-E platform. Excuse me as I switch over to my show notes so I can click on a link here. The Core i7-6950X is the new flagship enthusiast class processor from Intel. It's based on Broadwell-E. It is a 10-core, 20-thread CPU. Impressive specifications for sure. It has, let me see, where are we at here? It is a 3 gigahertz base clock and a 3.5 gigahertz turbo boost clock, 10 cores, 20 threads, 25 megs of cache. And then it still has 40 lanes of PCI Express 3.0. It has 4-channel DDR4 memory controller, 140 watt TDP, and it uses the same socket that Haswell-E uses, the 2000 LGA 2011 V3. So most X99 motherboards should be able to support the Broadwell-E processors with a UEFI/BIOS update of some kind. Now, there's other parts as well. The 6950X isn't the only part. It's the highest end part. You have the 6900K, which is 8 cores, 16 threads, slightly higher clocks. You have the 6850K, which is 6 cores, 12 threads, and slightly higher clocks above that. And you have the 6800K, which is a little bit lower clocks than the 6850, and it is also 6 core, 12 thread. But it is the processor that reduces you from 40 to 28 lanes of PCI Express, and other than that is slightly less cache as well. But otherwise is a very equivalent processor platform-wise. So I'm going to talk about the price last because it's the part that is most upsetting to me, and I'm going to talk about the impressive stuff and the new stuff first. The only processor we got in was a Core i7-6950X, so I only have the top end of the Broadwell-E stack. I don't have the other 3 parts, which I think maybe hurts Intel's stance in our stories with this. The new technology in this, so we know about the Broadwell architecture. We know what it offers. It still has the fiber, but the motherboard guys are getting around it for overclocking stuff. What Intel has done is they're trying to figure out they're still trying to figure out the best way to get maximum single-threaded performance and maximum multi-threaded performance on the same chip, right? And that's what Turbo Boost was supposed to do, right? It lets you, when fewer threads are running, your clock speed goes up to 3.5 on this part, and when all threads are running, it says we'll never go below 3.0 gigahertz. Well, they're introducing a new technology called Intel Turbo Boost Max Technology 3.0, which is a lot of words for basically an extension of this idea. They want to allow the core on your particular part that can go the fastest to go as fast as it can go, so that your single-threaded performance will improve. And they actually do this in an interesting way. Now, at manufacturing time, they have the ability to test which core is the best, which core takes the least voltage to get to the highest clock speed. And then they put that information into the processor itself, into the microcode, I guess, of it, and then it reports that information back to the BIOS and your Windows operating system and that type of stuff. Yeah, so what you see is that list right here. This is my processor, my sample that I got in, and it shows on the right hand a core list with core 4 being the top core, then 9, 8, 3, 7, 2, 6, 1, 5, 0. This basically tells you that those are the cores that are the best in terms of overclockability on lower voltage, according to Intel. And so what that means is you install a driver now, a driver for your processor, which is something we haven't done in a very, very long time, which will kind of overtake some of the affinity control, the thread control from Windows. That shot right there, actually, Alan, go back up real fast. That shot that you're showing there is a shot of the 10-core, 20-thread processor without this driver installed. And what you'll notice is, it's kind of maybe a little bit hard to see, in the bottom left-hand corner, you'll see some of the workload being done there. In the top row, fourth one over, you'll see some of the workload being done there. And in the far right, you see some of the workload being done there. This is a single-threaded application, single-threaded benchmark that was jumping between cores. And it was never able to go above 3.5 gigahertz, right? Because Windows didn't really know where it should put the process, to get the most performance out of it. If we go down to the next one, this shows after installing the driver where Intel is basically, the driver says, okay, single-threaded application, over 90% utilization of a particular thread. We know which core is best. We're going to put it on that one, and it will run it up to 4 gigahertz. And as a result, you see a 13 to 15% improvement in single-threaded workloads. And this is just an example run on the Pavre single-threaded test. And that's actually really significant if you think about it, right? The fact that we haven't really seen single-threaded performance improvements jump very much generation to generation. Now you're getting this in the same processor with the installation of this driver. It's a pretty interesting idea. And
they should call it parental control. As in the, okay,
Yeah.
kid, pick a seat and stick with it.
And some of the benefit is because it's not jumping between, it's not doing the thread hopping. But it is the fact that it's like Windows doesn't know today, at least, Windows doesn't know which core is the best core. Now, the idea is that Intel wants to get that information into Windows, and they want to integrate this as part of Windows 10 so that it will recognize which cores are best and kind of handle threading accordingly. And it appears that will be before the end of the year, we'll have that in Windows 10. But this driver for Broadwell-E does work on Windows 7 and 8.1 and 10. So if you have an older OS, you can still take advantage of the technology. It's still the same processor pack socket, but the package is a little bit different. We got in the Asus X99 Deluxe 2 motherboard and some Corsair Dominator memory to help us go through the testing. Overclocking-wise, I was able to get up to 4.3 gigahertz at a 1.35 volt setting, which is pretty high to be fair, but 4.3 across all cores. So despite the fact that you have this driver you can install and it will run single-threaded applications, X performance level faster. Obviously, if you go through the manual overclocking side of things, you can get even faster than that. Now we're talking 4.3, not just on one thread, but all the threads, which results in a up to 24% increase in multi-threaded performance on this processor. So what did I like to just say that if you're getting, let's see, the base, the typical, that's 3.4 was where all the threads would run at before overclocking. So we're talking about a 900 megahertz difference for 10 cores. We're getting a 9 gigahertz overclock on this processor. Does that math check out by you, Josh?
9 gigahertz?
9 gigahertz of additional.
That's Sebastian style math right there.
Yeah.
I mean, if we distribute it evenly across it, now when we overclock GPUs, we'll have to distribute it across 2,560 cores to really talk about what our performance increase really is. You will need a fairly beefy cooler, a 240 millimeter radiator to run this processor at 1.35 volts or so. So that's something worth noting. But it was fine once you had that type of cooler running. Performance. Look, it's exactly what you would expect to see, right? Like if you go to Cinebench or something that's heavily multi-threaded, you're going to see significant boost because you have 10 cores instead of 8, and you're running at higher clock speeds than you ever have. Well, actually, you're running at about the same clock speeds, but you're getting 25% more cores over what the 5960X processor was. Single-threaded performance is better than 5960X, again, because of that new Turbo Boost Max technology 3.0 stuff, but it's still not up to the 6700K Skylake, right? So keep in mind that Skylake is running at 4.2 or above on single-threaded applications, single-threaded workloads, so that's still going to be the winner across the board. Now let's talk about, so let me summarize performance. It's the fastest processor ever for consumers, right? Like it's the first 10-core processor for consumers. It's nice to see Intel upgrading the Enthusiast platform, the EDT platform, Enthusiast desktop platforms. Power consumption is high, but whatever. Nobody, if you're buying this processor, you probably don't really care. Performance per dollar, though, is going to be a big hit because this Core i7 6950X is $1,723.
That's a few dollars.
Trade price. Yeah.
That's more than the bloody Xeon, which just seems obscene.
It's more than twice the price of the Xeon.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I really don't get it. When they went from 6 cores to 8 cores, the 8-core processor was $1,000, and the Extreme Edition processor has always been $1,000, and it's always seemed a little crazy at the time. It was always a little crazy,
But it's tradition.
Yeah, and you could go, okay, well, don't get that one, get the next one down. And it seemed that Intel was maybe tired of that. So they decided with the 6950X, they were going to keep the 8-core version of Broadwell-E at $1,000 and make the 10-core version 70% more expensive. And so that's what they did. The 6950X 10-core processor is $1,700. You can get a Xeon E5.
It's got
Go ahead.
25 megs of memory of what, L2 and L3 cache or just L2?
L3.
Just
L3. 25 megs.
Sort of like the Xeon.
I remember upgrading my 386 SX16 to 8 megs of memory.
And it's
I mean,
still a
$200
Math Pro processor.
The problem is a Xeon E5 2640 V4 processor is a thing. It's a 10-core, 20-thread CPU with 25 megs of cache. It uses the same socket. It even has a lower TDP at 90 watts. It's $939. Now, it runs at lower frequencies, but it runs at a base of 2.4, but it still boosts up to 3.4. And it's $939.
To be honest, if you there's the 2630 is only about 200 megahertz slower and it's $667.
Yeah.
I don't understand the mentality here other than
I don't know.
I
I got it. Intel just wants to sell more Xeons.
I don't get it. Like people, and there are people in the comments of this saying,
Xeon
you didn't
K edition.
yeah, that'll be coming next.
like that people are trying to knock me for well, you didn't say anything about the Nvidia price increase with the GTX 1080, and I was like, well, I thought about it some more, and it's yeah, the Founders Edition is $100 more.
Uh-huh.
They didn't almost double it.
The MSRP
not $700
of the 1080,
more.
MSRP the 1080 is $50 more than the MSRP of the 980, even if you go to the base level. And I'm like, yeah, that's $50, but it's not $720, right?
Yeah, it's not 70% more expensive for 15% increase in performance.
If I were Intel's board partners or I were Intel's system builders partners, I would be pissed, right? Because
He'd be making Xeon boards targeted towards gamers.
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
I
mean,
the whole
why not?
point of this is you want to get for motherboard vendors, you want people to be excited about Broadwell-E and want to buy Broadwell-E so they buy a new motherboard, or that people buy new systems from Falcon Northwest or whoever. I talked to so many different editors while I was out here, and it's $1,723 is as much as most people's super high-end rig configurations.
Hell
right?
yeah.
Including you could build a whole system with a 1080 in it
For less
and
than
a
that.
Skylake platform and still spend less than on this processor. And I know that there are processors
Performance
that
is
are more
going to be
expensive.
damn good.
What's even funnier is a drawback to getting the Xeon historically has been the motherboards were kind of dated. They didn't have that good of accessory stuff on it or USB 3 support or whatever, right? And so this launch has kind of prompted
This is a drop-in upgrade.
Well, this launch has prompted a refresh to X99 boards, right? Kind of sort of V2 boards, like the one we tested for this review, right? That are updated all the other stuff. So how convenient. Now you have this nice newer board that you could just get the Xeon and stick in.
I don't know if that's true.
No?
I don't know if how many of these boards support the Xeon microcode. They need Xeon support.
I would
probably
think
pretty trivial.
I think most of the Asus ones that are X99 boards support
Asus usually does that. But
yeah.
I think MSI did as well.
it's not that.
There might be some of the
Sure.
enterprise features you're not going to get support for, but you're not
gives a
going to care.
Yeah.
I think there is a Xeon 14-core processor that's $1,300.
Still cheaper.
That's obviously lower clock still, but if you care about multi-threaded performance, 14 cores, 28 threads versus 10 cores, 20 threads, I don't know. It seems so odd to me, and it's look.
You know what the base problem is?
What's that?
Are you ready?
No.
Because AMD on the desktop has not been competitive for the past 3 or 4 years.
They've been competitive for longer than that. If we're gonna be honest.
No, I mean, Phenom 2 did well against the Core 2 series, and it kind of kept pace with Nehalem. Not great, but it kept pace. But Bulldozer came out, and it didn't really go past Phenom 2 speeds, and it stayed. I mean, I bought an 8350, put it on my main machine. I bought that 4 years ago, and it's still running.
Look at the performance per dollar on the AMD part in this.
Yeah.
I know, it's
chart.
because it's $150.
Well, because that's my question is, what is the most expensive AMD processor you can pick up right now? About $200?
Well, the 9500 series is about $220, and that's the 4.7 gigahertz to 5 gigahertz product, but
The
you need
220 watt
supercooling
guy.
for that, and
Yeah.
you need to have a motherboard
good
that
luck
will
getting
support
it to
that
hit that
kind of
speed
TDP.
Which
What's that,
virtually
Sebastian?
none do.
But
I just said good luck getting it to hit that
12%
speed
of the price of
consistently because
this.
the power draw is so outrageous.
VRMs don't know what to do.
Exactly.
You need a really good quality board to run one of those.
And you know what? This really reminds me of about 1997, 98, when Intel had internal roadmaps of the products that they were going to be pushing forward. And this was before K7 was released. And K7 was released, and suddenly those roadmaps went out the window because they just were not competitive. I mean, in 2000, we were expecting kind of a Pentium 3 pseudo product that had the Katmai new instructions, but was running at 450 to 500 megahertz. And we know that by 2000, we had hit the 1 gigahertz barrier because AMD had pushed forward. Intel had responded. AMD pushed forward again, and Intel responded. And we had this huge amount of growth from, we essentially doubled clock speeds in a 2-year space when AMD released the K7. I mean, and Intel introduced the Pentium 3. They went up. They had problems, of course, at the 1.133 megahertz, 1.33, whatever. The one where Kyle and the rest of the guys said, when you run Linux compiling code, it breaks. And they didn't actually sell any of those parts. But anyway, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
Intel just has not felt the need to innovate because they had no competition. So what they did is they've improved their process technology. They've done some IPC improvements. They haven't massively improved features and things like, sure, we've had AVX go past a couple of spots. But if you look at previous 20 years of advancements, this has been really slow in the past 5 years.
Slow enough to warrant a $700 price increase.
Something
Just
like
see what
that.
happens.
I
Maybe they'll
like.
sell.
They're going to sell some of them.
They're going to sell some of them. Here's the thing. Like, it's capitalist, whatever. Free market. Price your part at whatever you want to price it at. I can't tell you what to do. I can tell you that I can't recommend this part to anybody. Even at $1,000, it's a tough recommendation, right? I always have to caveat this with, only buy this if you really want to use the multi-threading capability. This isn't going to improve your gaming. This isn't going to improve your day-to-day tasks, right? If you are really, really need that type of compute. And now it's like, well, now if you really, really need that type of compute, I still don't want you to buy that part, right? Like that you're paying 70% more for 25% more cores running at lower clock speeds. So your performance may not even be that much different depending on your workload. It was really disappointing. It was really annoying, and I think it's a bad move on their part because at a time when, in 6 months, 8 months, we may have a CPU from AMD called Zen that's competitive. Intel should be trying to keep the positive mind share of gamers.
But this is not unprecedented.
Not just by writing checks to MLG tournaments, right? But by releasing products that get people excited and want to buy them.
If I can go back even further in time, when Intel, the Pentium MMX was a good chip, but they were planning on milking that thing for a long, long time. And if you remember way back in the day, AMD started talking about the K6. They were going to release it. Intel brought forward the Pentium 2 about by 6 to 8 months before they were planning on it because the 440LX chipset was not done. It wasn't complete. It wasn't ready. They're going to have Pentium 2, 440LX, the first AGP part, all of these other things in there. But AMD was threatening K6. And so they brought up their time space by about 8 months. And the first Pentium 2 266 was $1,500 if you were to buy it new on the day of release.
Yeah.
So it's not unprecedented from Intel to do such things.
But the market share, the market overall was so much tinier back then. You were often selling to organizations, to educational institutes at that point, and you could charge that because they had the pocketbooks to pay for it, and they would. The market's changed.
Yeah, but they had the Pentium 2 233 for like half the price.
True.
And then the Pentium
that
233 MMX for about $500.
And it was still priced beyond most families at the time.
Yeah.
Oh well. All right. So that go ahead.
I was just shaking my shoulders.
Yeah, all right. So that is our summation of the Broadwell-E processor situation. I'm going to take a second here before we get into our news items to recognize some Patreon contributors. We have Dan Jan, who updated their pledge also to $9.99. Josh,
$299.
no, to $9.99.
$9.99.
Okay.
Asus doesn't ever make anything that costs that much.
Pylon Squelch updated theirs to $5.
Oh.
Abraham Lincoln pledged $5.01. Thank you, Abraham Lincoln.
That's awesome.
That's pretty good.
Kentucky Bound pledged $4.02. And well, Drake, I'm assuming Drake is the world famous
Rapper.
R&B artist.
Yeah.
He actually edited his pledge down to $5. So
He's been having a hard time.
yeah, I don't know. His album's pretty good, but I don't know if it warrants a drop in
He's been
pledge.
spending too much time at basketball games.
You know, it happens. Patreon.com/PCPer. So let's talk about the other couple of things. We've got a couple of things. It's going to be a long show. I don't have any other way around this. Radeon RX 480. So you guys know about Polaris. We don't have to talk about AMD's Polaris architecture very much in terms of what it is, because we don't really know a whole bunch of what it is yet. But it is
Are you
AMD's
surprised by
next
the amount of stream units? I thought they were going to have 32 cores, but they actually had 36, right?
They have more. They
Could
have
we
more.
maybe
So
talk about what the product is
A-
first, Josh?
No.
He only cares about
But
the
it's,
core.
it's just cores. It's their next generation GPU architecture. Theirs is based on 14 nanometer.
14
right?
nanometer Samsung right now. Maybe going towards global foundries, but we don't know all those details right now.
We don't. Okay.
We don't.
So what they came out and publicly said at their press conference at Computex is that the brand is going to be the Radeon RX 480 is the first card they're talking about. It's based on the Polaris 10 GPU. It will be $199. And will
$199.
offer more than 5 teraflops of compute capability.
Was Roger
Now-
wearing a leather jacket at the time when he announced that?
No, you know,
Aw.
no, he let down.
Should've been. Damn.
So when I say greater than 5 teraflops, like they're just being very vague about it, like greater than 5 teraflops.
5.01.
Right, 5.01 teraflops. And the reason is I don't think they've settled on clock speeds yet for this part. But we can make some interesting assertions, right? They did talk about that it was going to have 36 compute units, which are 64 stream processors each for a total of 2304, as Josh was saying. We know that it has 4 and 8 gigabyte versions running at 8 gigahertz, GDDR5, not GDDR5X or anything else. 256-bit memory bus, 256 gigabytes per second of bandwidth, 150 watt TDP, $199 price tag.
4 gigabyte.
That's smoking, because I was expecting at least 249, if not 299.
But for the
Yeah.
8 gigabyte, it's $249, and I am so happy for this. That is a beautiful price point.
Yeah, I think it makes
really
sense that
is.
the 4 gig version will be $199 and the 8 gig version will be more.
Well, it's going to be about $249. A couple of places have
Okay.
spotted that as the price, and that is
Launching-
just fine.
Yeah, launching June 29th. So we still have a ways to get there. We have 4 weeks until the release of this card. So there's still time for NVIDIA to figure out what they're going to do. So it's interesting. We don't really know specifics on performance. There was a slide leaked out that compared it to a 970, 980. Now, Josh, think this is right when I was making this assertion. If you just look at compute capability, teraflops, the teraflops rating of GPUs, NVIDIA's seems to match more closely to realized gaming performance than AMD's GCN architecture does. In other words, for example, the R9 Nano is listed at having 8.19 teraflops of compute, while the GTX 1070 has 5.7 teraflops of compute, but the GTX 1070 is a faster part than the Nano, right, in terms of actual games, right? So the 5 teraflops rating, if you find a competitive part to that, you're looking at somewhere between a 390 and a 390X. A 390 is rated at 5.12, and a 390X is rated at 5.63 teraflops. So my guess is you're going to see performance in that range, right? But keep in mind, the R9 390X sells today for $389. So if we can get a 390X performance card for $199 at 150 watts TDP instead of 275 watts, that's a pretty impressive part, right?
That's a big win. And I can't put Windows into Mensol's or their RTL designs for their chips, but yeah, it does seem that in theoretical performance, AMD has an advantage, but that advantage comes at the cost of some flexibility. I believe in terms of pure compute, AMD has a better architecture that NVIDIA has, but that is just compute. When it comes to graphics and games, NVIDIA has skewed their designs more to that type of workload rather than AMD, which is kind of a jack of all trades, master none. NVIDIA is more like, I'm going to be really fast at games, and I'm going to be mediocre and so-so to actual compute, because at this point in time, we don't see GPU being as big as we had originally hoped it was a couple of generations ago.
Yeah, true.
And they've got the economics and whatnot to back that decision up, because they know how many cards they sell to professional people that actually utilize GPU and OpenCL and those type of workloads. So yeah, it seems like NVIDIA is more focused on gaming and having better performance, while AMD is more balanced in how they address it, and there are trade-offs to each of those. So, actual numerical throughput, if you could do a simple shader through that that will measure the damn arithmetic going on that chip, AMD is going to have an advantage there. But in pure gaming performance, NVIDIA has really skewed their designs towards that.
Yeah. The assumption here is, if you want to put it on NVIDIA terms, is that this will be performance somewhere between a 970 and a 980, maybe a little bit closer to a 980. Now, obviously, there's people who would be like, the stories about NVIDIA or about AMD like having a part that didn't work out to where they wanted it to be, so they had to degrade it down to where they're at now. I still don't know if I believe any of that or if I think that's the case, because the die size on this chip, I can't say, but it's kind of where I would expected it to be for a part at this price point. So there's still a chance that they were aiming higher.
I don't know
and
exactly
up,
what size it is, but everything that they have shown to us at CES, and before that, we knew it was a small part relative as compared to what we would expect in the 350 millimeter squared range up to 600 millimeter squared.
Yeah. So I'm really excited about this part. Now the question becomes, what does NVIDIA do? Do they have a 1060 ready to go to attack this part? Are they willing to go down to that price point? Are they just going to, reprice their Maxwell components, to kind of maybe undercut this? Maybe you sell the 980 for $199 now, which is going to be, if they do that, that's a hell of a deal. And say, well, we'll just take your business that way. And I think it's pretty clear that even though we're 4 weeks away from launch, from release of the RX 480 and whatever other parts they may have, The intent with releasing this information this early, this price point, and this kind of general vagueness on performance is to prevent GPU sales across the board. They're undercutting themselves, obviously. Anybody who's considering buying a 390 or 390X is kind of,
hell, considering a 380 or a 380X.
Basically, if you were considering a GPU, period, right? Unless you were going to consider a 1080 or a 1070, there's no point in buying a GPU at this point, because you want to wait to see what RX 480 is, and you want to wait and see what NVIDIA's response to that is. So if you were going to buy a 980, a 970, if you were going to buy a 380, 390, a Nano, a Fury X, you're just sitting there waiting, right? So we have this 4 weeks of interesting time period where nothing's going to happen except 1080s and 1070s are just going to be selling and selling and selling for whoever wants to buy that. But it'll be an interesting summer. It appears to be. So
yeah, we like interesting summers.
I mean, I'm give or take. It's all right.
Because you like vacations and you don't like to write.
Josh, let's talk real quick about another thing. AMD introducing their 7th generation APUs. And while you do so, I'm going to go find another water because I need another water.
You're thirsty. Because it's so humid there, right?
It is. Even
just
this
like
window,
open the window and like stick your tongue out.
The window is like triple paned, and it's still like I feel the heat coming in through it. So
that's really nice.
Proceed.
So anyway, AMD also announced their Bristol Ridge APUs. Now, we had known the codename Bristol Ridge for quite some time, and we thought that they would be more associated with the AM4 platform, namely the new motherboards that will support not only Bristol Ridge, but the Summit Ridge, which is aka Zen. Well, it turns out that this is a little bit different than we were expecting. So Bristol Ridge is based on Carrizo, and it's heavily based on Carrizo. There are very few major architectural differences between Carrizo and this, what they call the 7th generation AMD A-Series APU, otherwise known as Bristol Ridge. So it's still a 2-module excavator, which means 4 cores. It's a 8-core GCN architecture. It's GCN 1.2, same as Carrizo. And you think, well, what's the big difference? And the difference is actually a little bit more than you expect. First, it's a slightly different and more advanced 28 nanometer process. So in terms of the power applied to the transistors, you're going to get, 15 to 20% faster transistor switching speed. So it's going to be running faster instead of the, 2.1 to 3.2 gigahertz clock range of Carrizo. You're getting 3 gigahertz to 3.7 gigahertz. It's a major jump in raw clock speed performance across the board. They've done this again by process. They have a multitude of power saving and really fine-grained voltage and clock controls throughout the entire design. So, you're going to need to read the article to get it all, but they have AFVS, which, God, again, there's so many damn names for this stuff.
And most of them are coming out this week, eh?
Yeah. But, and then there's BTC, which is boot time calibration, which does some interesting mathematics. When you boot it up, it takes a look at the power supply, it takes a look at the chip, it sees how electricity is flowing, and it can determine a lot of things so that it reduces the guard band of these chips. So a guard band is essentially, okay, we know that I'm great at explaining these things. So we have got 100 chips, let's say, and we know that they can go from 1.3 volts and work perfectly fine, but we have an X amount of chips that won't do that. But if we take it up to 1.4 volts, all of them will work fine. And so the guard band is that you apply a certain amount of voltage so that all of these chips can perform as expected. But with BTC, it measures directly the power supply, and the chip, and it says, you know what, this is one of those chips that can actually do 1.3 volts, and it's going to do perfectly fine. And so it's allowing each per chip the most efficient use of power. And there are like 5 different things that AMD is doing to increase clock speed, to increase the overall boost time, but yet decrease the power consumption of these Bristol Ridge chips. And the nice thing about these technologies is they can go into next generation products without a problem. So we're seeing on average about 15% increase in performance, about 30% decrease in power consumption. And so these are almost a next generation chip without having to go to a next generation process technology, namely 16 nanometer or 14 nanometer. FinFET. These are still 28 nanometer, high-K metal gate, bulk silicon products. And, AMD is they're keeping pace. They're applying new technologies within the constraints that they are pushed into, which is namely process technology, and they're increasing performance, increasing power efficiency by thinking smarter, by introducing new algorithms into power control and clocking and TDP control that has given them a nice boost year over year in overall performance and power consumption without going to a new process node. So Bristol Ridge is going to be going to higher end HP laptops, going to be going into higher end Dell laptops that we've seen. And they're hoping that this is going to increase their mobile market share by a decent amount, much as Carrizo did last year. It kind of kept them from falling into negative numbers. It actually increased their market share, and they're hoping that Bristol Ridge will do the same because they've got people on board. They've still got the best overall graphics technology. They have more competitive CPU technology because these cores are able to boost higher, boost longer, and they do have an IPC advantage over the previous generation of the Bulldozer, Vishera. Gosh, I can't even remember the other Steamroller cores.
Steamroller.
Steamroller. And Kaveri. So these are all positives. It seems like it's a good piece of technology. It's only in mobile from 15 watts to 35 watts, but they've increased graphics performance, CPU performance, all of these things and not increasing the overall power consumption, and in fact kind of improving it overall from last generation or last year's FX 8800 series and below that were introduced. Was that just one giant run-on sentence because my mouth is dry?
I feel like, is this deja vu? Did you just say that?
All over again.
No. I think that makes sense. They did like a little bit of a smaller briefing here about it, and the takeaway I got from it was that the engineers were more the executives were more impressed with what they could get out of that part than they ever expected, I guess, is one way of putting it, right? Like, they didn't expect to get that kind of performance improvement or that kind of performance per watt efficiency improvements, but a bunch of little things kind of added up to make it possible. I still don't know how much of an impact it's going to make between now and the end of the year. I think everybody.
It's going to be a couple of percentage of market share, but when you're at like 15% market share and you go to 17%, that's a pretty big jump. If they can do that, hopefully.
Yeah. All right. Now we're going to get into the section of the show that I don't have anything to do with because I wasn't really paying attention to.
Oh.
So,
should we talk about Zen? I know there wasn't really anything, but we should probably mention what they did talk about.
They did at the press conference. It's a good point. Thank you, Ken. That they showed Zen working in terms of they held up a chip And we have a picture of it, Alan. If you go to the homepage on the site, there should be a post on Zen where it shows Lisa Su holding up a chip. It looks very much like every other AMD processor you've ever seen. And then they showed a video, like an intro video, that was very Michael Bay-esque in terms of loud noises.
Minimalist.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's true.
Someone was painting a circle with I am Zen.
It was rendered and created and built and played on an AMD Zen platform. So not only was it built on it, but they actually said after the fact, I don't think they said it during it, but they said after the fact that the playback system that was playing back the video was an AMD Zen processor as well. Not that that's some wildly, complex thing for it to do. It could have been running at 100 megahertz or 500 megahertz and playing back a video, for all I know. But she did claim 40% IPC improvement, and it was an 8-core, 16-thread design. Now, obviously, they didn't say clocks, so we have no idea where that's going to take it. But
And
they
in fact,
claim that
AMD doesn't even know what they're going to take that because they just have. I mean, they're still working up the silicon. They don't know how
But
fast
this-
they're
what I
going
was-
to be able to offer it.
it would be nice to know a range of where their goals are, but obviously they don't want to say that because if they don't meet their goals, that's on them. But they do claim that it will be competitive with the high-end consumer enthusiast parts, right? So does that mean Broadwell-E or does that mean Skylake? What does that actually mean? We're still waiting to see. I don't think was there any other details from what she said about Zen?
I don't think so.
No, they didn't even
That's
show
it.
us the pins on the backside, so we don't know the exact number, though. AM4 is supposedly 1331 pins.
Uh-oh.
Oh no!
Did we lose him?
No,
he's
yeah,
there.
I know it's AM4. Who, me?
Yeah, you're back.
You're stuttering.
You pulled to Josh.
I heard Josh breaking up, but I don't know if that's Josh or me. So,
That was you.
okay.
I am not breaking up tonight.
Oh, now you had to mention it. didn't you?
Everyone rejoice. My wife is happy. Not breaking up.
So yeah, that's Zen. I'm excited about it. They still say end of 2016. I think that's a positive, like maybe an aggressive stance. And
They got a lot of work to do in between now and then to get it out by Q4.
But they
Yeah.
did say they're going to release it to enthusiast desktops first. Enthusiast desktop, and then server, and then mobile, right? So whenever it comes out, we'll get it first. And I guess that's what matters to me. So, all right, now let's get into the things that I wasn't really here for, I guess. Let's talk about these. Let's start with the new GTX 1080s, kind of consumer or non-reference, non-founders edition 1080s are being released and announced.
ROG Strix.
Yeah.
Ooh,
What's
that's
interesting
a
about
good-looking
this one?
That's a nice looking card.
It's sexy.
Is it enormous?
It looks enormous.
Well, probably.
Triple fan cooler. There were some people in the comments saying that they apparently reduced the DisplayPort count to 2. I guess they're doing 2 HDMI, 2 DisplayPort, which I think is the wrong way to go. Because anybody that does triple...
So you can't do surround?
Yeah, anybody that does triple display surround wants 3 DisplayPort.
Yeah.
that's right.
And yeah, this suppose it only has 2. I was trying to confirm it by looking at this picture here, but it's kind of hard to tell.
Yeah, it's not.
Yeah.
Oh, it says
Um,
VR-friendly HDMI ports.
Yeah, they say ports, so but you don't need 2 ports for VR. It doesn't work like that. You don't
Gotta
need
keep both headsets
yeah,
plugged
yeah,
in.
you don't need HDMI per eye. Like it's
Yeah, but
not,
the HTC Vive can plug in DisplayPort.
oh. Huh. Well, okay.
Mm,
Actually, it can?
yeah. Okay.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it can.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, then you really don't need
Yeah.
the 2 HDMIs. All right. Well,
Hence why this one is not branded VR ready.
yeah.
Everything else at Buddy Computex.
So they have like a well. First of all, it has an additional 6-pin power connector.
Sure.
So supposedly the max power you can raise this to is 300 watts. I'd really like to see how that works in practice.
There's
But-
still going to be voltage limitations on that, right? Like,
Yeah. But I mean, what we saw with what we were toying around with here was the cards actually tend to ride the power limit on once you crank everything else up, then you're just riding the power limit, like on the 1080. At least that's what I noticed.
With the Founders Edition.
With the Founders Edition, yeah.
This is showing in the OC mode dip switch, the boost clock goes up to 1936, which is 200 megahertz overclock.
Yeah, out of the box.
That's pretty impressive.
They're finally starting to do what you want, Ryan.
I know.
Actually overclock these cards out of the box.
Yeah.
All I've ever done for years is bitch and complain because they build these highly over-engineered overclocking cards and then give you 40 megahertz out of the box, right? And here they're giving us 200. And I'm okay with that.
So going off of commenters, it's the overclock.
Always safe.
The overclock version is supposed to be like $20 premium over the standard one, which is $620.
Unacceptable.
So like $620 to $640. I'll pay an extra $20 for a 200 megahertz overclock.
The Strix card is supposed to be $620.
I guess we're going off a commenter here, but actually, wait.
They're the sanest people on the planet.
I could see that. I don't think their Strix has usually been excessively overpriced, I guess.
Well, the sources on Asus.
You're so biased. You've got a
water?
Radeon drink mug.
He's drinking hot water.
Oh, it's got the LED things you can like change all the colors on and stuff.
Not my water bottle. The card does.
Yeah,
It's got RGB LEDs.
it's got RGB LEDs. Match your
Also,
motherboard.
That would be the second most popular phrase at Computex.
Even on the backplate. Check that crap out.
Well, hopefully on the backplate, that's the part you'll see.
I use one of those
That's
inverted
awesome.
cases.
I'm okay with that.
I'm the guy that uses the inverted case.
This is the I don't know. There's two mindsets, right? People who like the elegance of the reference design.
There it is.
Is it? Yeah, it does have two HDMI. I'll have to ask them about that. What their
not good.
mindset.
That just seems like just the wrong way to go because you just now anybody with surround just this is not their card. They just don't buy this card. Like, why would you do that?
Yeah.
They'll have plenty of other cards to sell you.
I
sure.
guess.
They should have taken off the DVI port.
Yeah.
Instead.
Or does it really
but it
need?
also plays with a display port, so you could do it. But
I mean,
yeah,
does it really
odd.
need those extra like fins there for the heat to escape out the back? Because I'm sure
Well,
much air.
you can only have 5 output connections, and you can only have 4 active at any one time.
Oh,
Yeah.
So that's why there's only 5 output connections. I don't know why you need more than one HDMI port.
One of these days will kill DVI. One of these days.
yeah. It's
I like
time is-
DVI still for its it just always works
That's true.
capability.
Why doesn't DisplayPort always work?
no.
Just because they're syncing and stuff like that. And with DVI is what allows us to hack around all the things we do with our capture technology,
That's
right?
true.
Because it just sends bits. It doesn't care what's on the other side. It just sends crap. With DisplayPort,
What you're saying
HDMI,
is there's
it
no
cares what's on
handshake.
the other
There's
side.
no HDCP.
Well, there is. That's
There is
not
HDCP.
With DVI?
Yeah. It just
it's
there's
not handshaking.
there's just less handshaking and negotiation going on and stuff when you connect it. Yeah.
I'm being reminded.
It's
of
like a
all
speed
the-
date. You plug it in, and it decides whether it likes it or not, and away you go from there.
It either works or it doesn't.
All the Korean displays with only dual link DVI, which I own one.
Yeah.
That's a good point. Yeah.
That's true. Yeah, you're locking a lot of people out if you just like
Trying to
stop.
lock myself out, apparently.
So what about these MSI cards? Looks like they announced a whole lineup from the basic to the not so basic.
Is that another?
It's the
Or
next
this
link.
one up.
No, that's not. Oh,
Sebastian, what's all these MSI machines or these graphics cards? Tells me about.
Well, I was
them.
actually reading about this particular card, the Gaming X, on videocards.com because we're looking at the reference. That's their reference blower. They have a gaming version coming out as well. Which I don't think we
That
posted
one
about
may
yet.
actually hit $599.
Yeah,
That
with the
one
blower.
should. That was that sort of generic one that Galax
Yeah.
also had a version of.
oh, and then there's a
I don't know if-
hovercraft.
Hey, the gaming
dual-
armor, easy.
Is
Check that one out.
Is the gaming on this news post
No,
as
the
well?
armor.
Yeah,
the
it's at the
armor is
bottom.
that one. Gaming
The
is
Gaming
below.
X is the red one at the bottom.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
the 290X.
Because what is
Seahawks.
interesting about the gaming is that the people at hardware.info have been posting pictures of their power and temperature test results from their upcoming review. And videocards.com has that. I'll have to make a news post for this because
Is it good or
the
bad?
difference between Founders Edition and the MSI Gaming is tremendous. You don't see any kind of throttling. The difference was about 150 megahertz all the time in speed, and it ran significantly cooler. So once these presumably lower cost third-party cooled versions of the cards come out, there might be a very different opinion of the Founders Edition. Yes, it looks really cool, but what if there are cards out there that have greater overclocking headroom that run at a faster boost clock all the time and give you a huge performance boost for less money?
That would be a positive thing, I think.
Unless you bought a Founders Edition.
That's
Sure. I mean, how much of this has to do with the difference of a blower style cooler and not? I don't know what you call the other kind now. A standard.
I think blower style coolers, in my experience, and overclocking cards can be just as effective. The difference is the way the fan controllers are set up on blowers is always to try to reduce that like vacuum
Noise.
cleaner noise level.
Yeah.
So if it's kind of scaling back the fan speed to keep it under a certain volume level, you're going to have reduced cooling performance. If you crank it up to 100% fans, it's shockingly loud and probably does as good a job as any other kind of cooler.
I forget who made it, but there's a company making like an aftermarket, not water cooler, not water block, but like one of these style coolers for the 1080. So if you got the Founders and you wanted like the dual fan kind of setup with the heat pipes and everything, like it's a thing. I just don't remember.
Just spend an extra $100 probably.
I think it was like an extra $100 or something like that.
For your already
Arctic always had one of those
more
for
Yeah.
everything.
expensive.
Then
I know.
Yeah.
It seems lame,
gotta
but if you're stuck with the Founders,
you've got to glue like heat sinks to the VRM and
oh, it's
So
like that.
Sebastian, can I ask you a personal question?
Oh,
Yes.
God.
Are you on your back porch?
No, I'm actually sitting on my bed because I ran out of battery for my laptop and had to move.
Oh, okay.
No, you got kicked out of the house, didn't you?
We're not going to talk about that on the podcast.
All right.
Also
Motel
on
A.
that list, looks like they
With IKEA
announced the
furniture.
MSI Seahawk, which is the water-cooled kind of version
Oh,
thing
whoops.
in
From
combination
Seattle?
with Corsair.
There we go.
And then the Armor, which is a 2-fan cooler. I don't know how it's different than the gaming necessarily, but it's black and white
It's
instead of red.
the fin density is lower and there's fewer heat pipes than gaming.
I see. So they're starting to come out. We're starting to see some. I think there's a couple waiting for me at my house. I think those other 1080s showed up at my house, by the way, today, Alan.
I was wondering where those
I'll
went.
just get them.
Speaking of which,
Oh, what?
Speaking of other 1080s.
Speaking of 1080s, or a pair of them.
Speaking
I do
of
have one-
seamless transitions,
I'm going to break up your transition with this comment. Somebody sent me a note on Patreon that says 3 monitor surround with 2 DisplayPort and 1 HDMI does work. And then he says, I say he, but I don't know for sure, says go Jayhawks. But he did up his pledge from $5 to $10, which I appreciate, except for the go Jayhawks part. And also, that works, except unless you're doing like if you have 3 G-Sync displays or 3, I guess HDMI 2.0 will do higher res, like 25 by 14. But
Yeah, it'll
will
handle that. It'll handle that, yeah. I think
will
so.
but do 25 by 14 monitors have HDMI
Not G-Sync ones.
2.0 in them? No, I know G-Sync doesn't, but I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know. It's worth the debate, but I would rather have seen a DisplayPort. You can always convert DisplayPort down to anything else. So, anyway, back to your amazing transition.
Derailed image transition. So we got an EVGA card in. Of course, it would happen as Ryan was like flying over a large ocean or something like that. So I kind of, kind of threw it on a test bed, and we didn't have the new HB bridge thing, but I just threw one of the LED bridges on it and fired up the old 3D Mark and got over 10,000 as a score on Firestrike Ultra. So that was interesting. It scaled as expected. Got to toy around with it. I was able to overclock both all the way past 2 gigahertz Yes, even the Founders Edition, even though it was sitting behind the other board, like with, a less than a quarter-inch gap between the two cards, and, I had its fan cranked up to 100%, but it still managed to do it just fine. It just was running at 72C while it was doing it.
That's all right.
It's still possible. It's just that card, could probably use some better cooling, especially if you're going to try to do any kind of SLI with those. And, and I guess tomorrow I'll be running over to Ryan's place and stealing 2 more cards and probably doing quad. So there's the new... this is kind of a love it or hate it design.
I don't like it.
Ken doesn't like it. I was kind of on it, but...
I liked earlier EVGA model looks.
Well, I mean, I like this better when it's lit up. Like, I like how they lit up all those, like, whitish parts in the center, along the center.
Yeah, I like mine better when they're lit, too. But that was the one that was running at 47 Celsius, not 72.
Yeah, it was running at 47. But honestly, it didn't need to run at 47. I had the fans on just everything cranked to 100 because I was just going for a simple overclock. Just took the slider and, Precision X, just whoop, okay, up to 100.
Just a simple overclock. Fans at 100%.
Fans at 100%.
Power boost at 120%.
Yep.
You see what happens when I leave, Ryan.
Yeah, I just cranked everything up to 11.
I want to say until this release, I don't think I've ever run the fans at 100% on purpose. Except to just, I wondered how loud can it get if I put it to 100?
And it gets pretty loud.
You would never run it at 100, right? Like you would never actually do that.
So here's the thing. Actually, it kind of almost needed 100 on the other one, on the Founders one.
That's because you had it smushed together. It didn't need to be.
Well, yeah. And, they're going to have to be smushed if I do quad.
For 4, yes.
Yeah, there's no way around that. Fans on this, actually, probably about as loud at 100%.
Yeah.
So, really does not need 100% at all.
My guess is that if they're at the same noise levels at 100, those fans could probably run at 20-something.
Yeah. While
the NVIDIA Founders Edition maybe has to run at 50 or something like that. Just a guess, but...
Yep.
Yeah. All right.
So that was a thing. So I guess I'll be doing the whole whatever super secret key thing, just so that I can.
Yeah, I got to figure that out still.
I still don't get, like, is it really writing something to the cards? Like, I would have thought it was just like a registry tweak and something telling the driver to do something different.
Well, it'll be licensing. Same damn thing as HTCP.
No, nothing like that, I don't think. But it's just like, the whole, like, modifying the cards. I don't think it's modifying the cards to do it, just a hunch. But
I'll remind me after the show. I need to send emails on that again anyway. So
yep.
What other stuff happened? ASUS announced ROG Rampage 5 Edition 10. This is a motherboard with all of the LEDs on it. It looks nice.
Now it's got like different things. You can light up different colors at the same time and stuff, right?
Like I got in the X99 Deluxe 2 that has those colored PCI Express locks, or what you call them, latches. But now this has like underbody lighting as well.
Underbody lighting?
Yeah, like see on the right hand side. Go back up a little bit.
Back in the day?
It's glowing from underneath.
See on the right hand side.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
On the right hand side, it's got like underbody glow on it. Plus, it has
gotta
the
have ground effects.
50/50
you're not really
RGB
custom
header
without ground
on it,
effects.
too.
Yeah. But they moved that PS2 port, which is just weird.
Yeah, what's it doing over there?
Oh yeah, I don't know.
No.
I don't.
All right.
$599. This is the celebration of their 10th anniversary of Republic of Gamers, I guess.
I believe this is also the motherboard. They announced they will be releasing 3D models so that you can customize and put your name where it says like the Republic of Gamers. You can replace that with a nameplate that says Allyn. That's 3D printed.
I don't really need one.
No, but it can say
But you
Allyn.
have a 3D printer.
Okay. I mean, we have all those.
You're going to enhance the resale value so much by doing that. Be like,
Yeah.
this is Allyn.
This is the Allyn edition.
personal motherboard.
Yeah, just sign it and there you go.
Yeah.
Perfect.
All right.
Down.
What else? Wait a minute. There's 2 of those.
Asus Avalon Concept PC.
Uh-huh.
Did you see that in person, Ryan, or have you?
No, I did not.
I guess you weren't
did not.
at
What'd you think about when you read through my little write up on that? Did it immediately look like a record player to you?
Yep.
It looked like a small, like a mini hi-fi system. It looked like it had a CD cartridge changer in the front. I was kind of staring at it. It's interesting to go without cables. I don't think it's going to catch on at all. It's just a nice proof of concept, in my opinion, but I like it. The problem
I like the idea
is
of the
cost
replaceable
on these components, I think, because how are you going to get the industry to standardize modular components?
Well, I don't think that modular
Well, we've
power
already
supply has
standardized that
been
PSU.
shoved in and out of a case enough times.
Actually, Sebastian, this power supply has your name all over it because look at that old school, PCI 32 connector they're using for the pin.
Are you sure that isn't just like the PCB from a Nintendo?
Yeah,
game?
that's where all those old. You have to blow on this power supply before you turn the system on.
Power supply
If
problem.
you're,
Just
that's
blow on
the
it.
troubleshooting guide. If it doesn't work, if your computer won't boot, try unplugging and plugging the power supply back in. Try blowing it out with an air compressor.
Oh, it has VGA fingers, Josh.
Yeah.
It's a dogfish.
Well, you know what? And they're also announcing the K7M Anniversary Edition motherboard.
The idea behind Avalon is that ASUS says there hasn't been any real innovation in cases and platforms because the people who make the motherboards aren't the same people that make the cases. And so they're like, well, we can do both of those things. So what happens if you build a case and a motherboard kind of as one piece? And the ideas are interesting, right? You have some modularity of things like the rear panel connectors can be modularized. They're connected through PCI Express as opposed to some kind of proprietary thing, and you can actually have controllers in those back panel connectors. If you scroll up a little bit, Alan.
See, that's the one thing that I actually really do kind of like about this
Mm-hmm.
is a customizable back panel controller.
I agree. Like pick your own
It beats
I/O.
trying to
is cool.
jam the set stuff in. It's like you get to pick which one of them you want.
But
Yep.
you could do the same thing with a front panel in like a 5 1/4 bay.
Absolutely.
So-
And I bet you the case does that as well, doesn't it?
So
Well, I
it's
don't
a
know
matter of
how
like,
the
are you
front
going to do
bay
this with
is.
headers? You're going to do it with like a custom back panel.
Scroll down to the second photo, Alan. I just want to stare at that for a while.
Yeah, that's
You know what
that's
that looks
the RAM.
like? It looks like a cheap Emerson
It does.
Walmart special stereo unit that you buy.
With plastic
sorry.
speakers.
I was just wondering if the speakers were built in.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like I've had this idea before. Like the ATX form factor's been around for a while, and surely we could do something better. And I like the idea of them trying something, but number one, this will never come out. This is one of the things they announced at Computex that'll never see the light of day.
Yep.
ASUS does that every year. Number two, they probably should have went a little more reasonable with it, and not try to do this like
That's true.
like
What's that case that Kickstarter
Mind
got
you, I
like?
felt about the same thing about the level 10. The old BMW and what was it, Thermaltake?
Yeah, the BMW designed case.
Yeah, like that thing was, it's pretty. It's stupidly expensive, and it's going to be a pain in the ass to try and upgrade.
Look up
It's a good
the
try.
Apple 20th anniversary Mac, and you will
Yes.
see the inspiration
Yeah.
for this.
yes.
The most ridiculously overpriced personal computer of the modern era. It looked like a high-end
As
home
opposed to
theater
the
or like a
classical
stereo
era?
component.
Oh,
As opposed to
God.
like the Xerox Star days of, $20,000 home PCs.
Is this them taking a whack at like B&O or something?
No. Bang & Olufsen?
Yeah, because that's what it looks like they were trying to
Yeah,
do.
it does kind of look like,
No one knows.
I mean, they're
Not
just trying
really.
to make a computer. The funny part to me is that like the video card is still the biggest, most obnoxious piece of this entire system, right? Like they show one of their own Strix cool cards in the system, and they were like, yeah. And as it turns out, we couldn't really figure anything out about the GPU because it requires so much power, so we just jammed one in here anyway. But it's an interesting idea. I would encourage you. ASUS posted a story. Actually, Jeff, who used to be at Tech Report, is now running the ASUS Edge Up website, and he had a story
Is that
written
what he's
about
doing?
this. Yeah, I've written about this project here, so I'm curious what people's thoughts are on this weirdness that is that. And then Sebastian, they announced the Zenfone 3.
They did.
Smartphones,
Three
family.
different Zenfone 3s. So
Yeah.
you
Three.
start off with one that's the size of an iPhone 6 Plus, so it's 5.5 inches.
It's already
Also
too big.
1080p. I wouldn't be surprised if they're sourcing the same panel because it's IPS, so it's probably an LG panel. You move up to the Deluxe, which gets you a much faster processor. The base is like a 625 Snapdragon, I think, just something very low end. The Deluxe gets you a Snapdragon 820 or 821, depending on market. I have never even heard of the 821 until this. And then, if you are truly insane or want to use your tablet as your phone, there is the nearly 7-inch Ultra version of the Zenfone 3.
Mm.
So you have 5.5, 5.8, and 6.8. The 6.8, the only real difference, because it's still 1080p. All three of these are 1080ps. A 6.8 inch phone at 1080p seems a little low, but it has a really big camera sensor in it.
6.8. That's an
Yeah, I
inch,
know.
1 inch
I
shy
used their
of
promo picture
of an iPad
because
mini.
the lady holding the phone, it looks ridiculous. Like it looks like she's holding like an iPad mini in her hands.
Yeah, it's 1 inch shy of it. So
I remember years ago when I told Brian to hold the tablet up to his ear to make a phone.
yeah, we were joking.
And now you can. It's
You
finally happened.
can.
This isn't
I
FaceTime.
still
I'm
thank
on a
the Register
cellular
for coming
call.
up with phablet, because that's what that is. That's
Yeah, I
a
don't even know if
phablet.
that's phablet anymore. It's
It's
just tablet.
tablet.
Oh, gee,
It's a phone.
look at the dual tone flash action there.
Oh, it's got a really impressive camera. I don't remember. It's like a 318. The IMX. It's a Sony 23 megapixel sensor. But the Zenfone, as we know, the Zenfone 2, which we reviewed here, it was a $199 phone unlocked.
Mhm.
But it was obviously heavily subsidized by Intel, and it was Intel mobile SoCs. This, Intel has obviously moved away from that market this year, and this is like a return to standard like ARM-based SoCs and its Snapdragon processors.
Mhm.
The price only went up a little bit. It went up to $249 for the base Zenfone 3. If you want to move up to a higher end product, it's a huge jump. It's double. So the Deluxe, which gets you like a high end phone spec across the board, it's $499. So no longer is this like, a really premium looking phone that you can get for next to nothing unlocked. You're going to have a choice. Like, do I want low end specs at a low end price or high end specs at a standard unlocked phone price?
I'll be very curious to see how that affects them, because one of the things I did notice in my walks around Hong Kong yesterday and all the different markets and the electronics markets, the Asus brand was everywhere for cell phones. It's a market that's very much looking for unlocked devices at low cost, and as you reviewed it, it was a really good device for that price. So I'm curious how much this will affect them. We can talk about it another time, but like the markets over there were an amazing thing for an American person to see. Basically, any cell phone that you could ever have imagined existing, from a candy bar phone to the Galaxy S7, sitting in glass display cases, just stacked on top of each other with screen protectors already on them, because they were all used phones just for sale. Was mind-boggling.
You can get your iPhone upgraded to 128 gigs of storage. There are stalls that desolder the VGA package and solder on the bigger capacity.
Awesome.
I took a picture of
in like 10 minutes.
There were two guys in a thing at a soldering thing, and they were I don't know what they were doing at the time. Nobody really likes you taking pictures of them over there.
Yeah.
But
It might be used
I
as
took
evidence.
a picture of them at work.
Because it steals their souls.
So, yeah, it's pretty impressive stuff over there. I'll have some pictures I'll show you. We'll talk about it in the post show. What else happened? EVGA happened at Computex. We already talked about their 1080 and 1070. In the 1070s, they'll have similar ones. I was more curious about, what do they call this power thing?
Oh, that is the EVGA power link adapter.
Okay.
And
Now, this is a modular
if you
component.
zoom
I
in
can
on
get
it, it's easier to see. But so you plug this in to the end of your card, which you can see in the screenshot just above it.
Right.
So it's
LED.
plugged in, so it reroutes your cables, so that now they're on the inside.
They're on the
Instead of-
inside?
It's supposed to
Well-
make it cleaner so that you plug the cables into the side of the back side of the video card as opposed to the top.
So
of
on the
video card.
bottom right of that EVGA bracket is where the actual cables go into.
Oh, okay.
Correct. Right? So it means
Yeah, right
that
there.
you're not dragging cables all the way out.
Think about the ATI 5870 versus the 5770. Whereas
No.
the 5770
Do I
had the
have to
cable
think
coming straight
about
out the
those things?
back. The 5870 had it coming out the top.
Why didn't
And
they
it's got
just
an LED
put
on it
the power
because
connectors on the side
Computex.
if they wanted it to be on the side?
Well, apparently that whole dissuading the quad thing didn't have an impact because
No EVGA is even selling custom bridges, because that's what you were testing, wasn't it?
no, realize that bridge would not be the same as the HB. The HB would only have 2 pairs of ports on it that goes.
Yeah, because of the bandwidth limitation. They said they can't go above 2 at full bandwidth, right?
Yeah.
And there's no guarantee that all of those are currently servicing.
Well, that's probably one of their
On-
older style bridges that actually does the
But-
diagonal crisscross thing with a
But-
single port used for each card.
If you would direct your eyes a little bit lower
Uh-oh.
on that picture.
Oh, okay.
Oh, no, the same one. You will see that there is a integral fan controller, as well as all of your power buttons on the side of the case,
Oh,
not the
look at
front.
that.
Oh,
Yeah, we saw that case at CES.
they gave this thing a name.
Yeah, no, it's
Yeah,
the
it is a
Dawn.
name.
It's the
Not a
Dawn
good-
model DG87, in fact.
It's not a good name.
All right.
No,
It's
it's
the
it's
only
not.
one.
But it's a nice shot of Jacob. You can see him reflected. And
No.
yeah, 2 new power supplies and colorful cables. They were quick to point out that these are just a small smattering of the colors that will be available.
Cool.
So you'll be able to buy
Smattering.
ESU sleeved cables in probably 187 or 18.7 million different colors just to match your
Nice.
LEDs.
All right, our last CES. Our last Computex story. Actually,
Not
this
for
isn't
another
even a
6 or 7
Computex
months,
story,
Ryan.
is
Don't
it?
worry.
No, it's not a Well, I imagine they just launched it in tandem with Computex just because stuff's going on.
What the hell is it?
So we've, seen how the Samsung 2.5-inch SSDs have gotten shrinkier and shrinkier and like less chips on them, and the
Shrinkier, yes.
yeah. Remember like when I opened up the what was it, like the 200?
750.
No, like even the 250 gig like 850 Evo.
Just like an MSATA
like-
SSD in there.
It's like smaller than an MSATA SSD, right? It's a controller and like 1 chip or 2 chips, like for flash. Well, what if you just took the controller and the RAM and you stacked those dies on top of each other, and then you took up to 64 48-layer VNAND dies and threw that on top of the other 2 things, and then put it all in one BGA chip package. And by the way, that is a NVMe PCIe SSD controller. So basically, you're talking similar performance, potentially, to a 950 Pro.
Potentially.
Heat.
Potentially.
You know how many pins they have on the bottom of that?
well, you
There's
don't
not
need-
nearly as many leads as the M.2 controller. Well, the plug-in.
well, all
the
you need
slot.
is, all you need is for 4 lanes of PCIe. All you need is like 8 pins. So
No, you need more than that because of power
well,
and ground on
there's-
PCIe.
Yeah, power and ground, sure, but the thing only draws like 5 or 6 watts. But the 950 Pro draws 5 or 6 watts. So
How do you dissipate that heat?
just right to the main board. It's soldered to the board. A chip can dissipate 6 watts that's on the board easily.
Yeah,
The problem with the-
bumps do a pretty good job
Yeah.
of transferring heat.
Yeah, the problems with the M.2 stuff is that it's floating above the board with
Yeah,
maybe
but I'm
not
just
that
thinking
much
of the
airflow.
form factor of device that this would potentially be in.
They're going for laptops. And remember, it's only drawing 6 watts when you're actively like writing to it at 100% throughput,
Yeah.
right? Samsung SSDs in general have very good low power states to them. It's pretty aggressive on that too. So when you're not using it, it really does spin down to almost no power draw. So they're basically just taking all the stuff, jamming it into one part, and I am just so happy about this because this could be the beginning of the end for the eMMC crap that you see on everything.
Yeah.
This is still going to cost more.
Yeah,
obviously.
you see eMMC because it's so cheap on a lot of things.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
exactly.
get it.
There's only one reason it's used.
Yeah, but here's the other cool thing about this. This is 48-layer TLC on a NVMe SSD. So this would be like the first time that we've seen an Evo equivalent of, a Samsung NVMe controller connected to something. It's not called an Evo. Since it's like an OEM-ish kind of part, it's called a PM971-NVMe. So of course they had to go crazy with their naming for the OEM side, like they always do. But they're claiming, like 1.5 gig per second reads, almost 1 gig per second writes. They do qualify that and say it's for turbo write. So that means that this will also do the SLC/TLC thing that the Evos do. Potentially giving it like even better random write performance than like a 950 Pro, by the way, since you're writing straight to SLC most of the time. So, interesting stuff.
It's just confusing as to what will be a cheap enough device that they'd want to put this in, but it's in a more expensive part, substantially, I imagine.
Well, I tell you one thing it will probably end up in.
What?
Like MacBooks.
No.
You don't think so?
Apple bought a storage company that made their controller for this reason, and they've been using it.
Which controller is that?
It's their own.
They have their own now?
Yeah. Like current MacBooks have an NVMe controller that is Apple in-house.
Huh.
That's that OWC crap, isn't it?
No. That's a bad
No,
one.
LWC is still
one.
on SandForce.
Yeah.
Or Marvell by now, but
Like they use the
I'd be
same
surprised.
IP in the mobile SoCs, and now they're desktop, quote unquote,
Huh.
SSDs.
Interesting. I wonder what those actually perform like. Oh well.
Ken,
Then
you
it'll
should
be
buy
in-
one.
Then it'll be in
You're gonna have to buy another Apple, Al.
It'll be in other like high-end ish kind of.
Yeah, like it was just the fact that Apple probably won't use it that was confusing me as to like.
Yeah.
I guess we could see it in. I don't know.
Well, there's nothing wrong with shrinking the part. I mean, for anything that's like
Yeah, but it's not upgradable anymore.
true. I get it.
I don't know.
It was never upgradable.
I mean, you could
It's just an illusion.
you could potentially make a new M.2 shorter, like really shorter length, and just have just this on an M.2 board, and then you'd be able to have it,
That'd be
interchangeable.
cute.
It'd be so cute. Actually, like what is it? A 22?
The Wi-Fi card size one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and pretty good performance too.
Anyway.
Yeah, so it's a half a terabyte, and also you can get it with like half of that and half of that again, so 256 and 128 if you want a shorter stack of stuff crammed into that single BGA package.
Nice.
Yep.
All right. Let's get to our hardware software picks of the week so we can get the hell out
No.
of here. No? Yes. We're going to anyway. My pick is I actually started using Tunnel Bear, which is a service. It's a VPN service that I've seen advertised in a lot of other places. Simple, private, free access to the open internet. It is free up to, I think you can get 500 megabytes per month of VPN access for free. And then it's $5.99 a month for unlimited. Or I think it's $50 a year. I think that's what it is. Yeah, $49.99 a year or $6.99 a month for unlimited data through your VPN. You can connect up to 5 computers, tablets, or phones through the network for that price. I would say the majority of people don't really use VPNs. Probably more people should if you are connecting through a lot of public hotspots, Wi-Fi at airports or coffee shops or other things like that. I was using one because I was coming to China, and I was like, well, this seems like a good idea. And then I wanted to download some new episodes of a TV show to my iPad through Amazon Prime, but it wouldn't let me because I was out of the country. It said it was region locked. I was like, well,
You
no,
told
I'm
us
not.
you were
Watch
working.
this. What's that?
You told us you were working, not watching TV.
I'm downloading them for the flight home. But I wanted to preload like 8 of them on the device, the whole season worth of episodes, and it wouldn't let me do it because I was region locked. So I downloaded Tunnel Bear, enabled it. Now Amazon thinks I'm coming from the United States, and I was able to download my episodes of the Newsroom season 3 correctly. And then I just felt a little bit better using it on my PC while I was here. You can install an application that will be like a Windows level VPN, or you could just install the browser plugin for Chrome, and you can have just browser based VPN if you're only really worried about stuff inside a browser, right? Like if you're only using email through Gmail or whatever, then that seems to work. I haven't had any performance issues. I haven't had any issues with speed, but again, I'm halfway across the world, and don't really have an idea of what the performance will be like at home. But they claim you should get 80 to 90% of your available bandwidth while using their VPN. So it's worth trying out, especially if you get the little version, which is 500 megs of data free every month, and maybe you'll find it useful. So that's what I got.
All right. Next.
Oh, sorry. I'm just telling Sebastian to rub whiskey on his kid's gums. To stop screaming.
Hey, this is in line. This is in line with that Asus thing we were talking at.
This is how it works. It didn't do me any harm. Anyways, I get many Kickstarter emails. Some of them I pass along, and this is one that I will. Dan Cases. We talked about this months ago when they were first talking about designing this, and it's kickstarted. They're already funded for about $260. You can get this case, which is more impressive if you scroll past the video and go down into the build pictures. I look at it and my fingers sort of started bleeding just because of how compact this thing is, but I'm impressed. It fits a full-size GTX 980 Ti. That is not easy to do in a small form factor system.
Actually, it barely fits.
But it fits.
And then on the other side, you cram in the power supply.
And either an air cooler or an all-in-one. It's, honestly, I'm looking at this thing, I'm going, this is pretty. Like, this is well designed. And you compare this to some of the other small form factor chassis, it's in line with the prices. It's got the PCIe adapter so that you can mount the cards, vertically as opposed to horizontally. If you're looking at something that has to be tiny but powerful, I'd look into this thing because it's already been funded 2-3 times over last time I checked. Just short of 3 times over.
And this, even though it's on Kickstarter, this should actually ship. They're partnering with Lian Li, like the...
Yes.
What was that other Kickstarter case? That big one that...
Oh, that was bad.
The one that Sebastian reviewed.
Yeah.
What was that
Not
case
the one that we wanted him to throw down the hill, but the other one.
Yeah. Anyways,
That
Lian Li
Sebastian's
seems to
dealing
be
with a
getting...
streaming kit.
Lian Li seems to be getting into this semi-custom business, doing these sort of small runs.
I'm looking at this thing. I'm impressed.
Yeah.
Cool.
It's worth looking into anyways because of that picture right there.
You couldn't
Nice.
make that smaller.
Yeah, N-Case. I think that was
N-Case.
Yeah, it was N-Case.
Yeah, N-Case is the one that fell over horribly and kind of deserved to.
What? No. No, it didn't.
It didn't.
Kind of.
No. N-Case was a success. It was a great case. Sebastian loved
Oh,
it.
did it?
Yeah, he didn't want to send it back. But it was a Kickstarter that Lian Li made the case for them, and this is the same sort of thing. So there's a lot of experience they have dealing with the whole Kickstarter stuff. Looks
Haven't we all at this point?
Yeah.
All right. So all you guys got a bunch of Amazon boxes lying around, right?
You're not next.
Oh, I'm not next?
No.
Oh, damn.
Who's next?
Oh, yeah. You're next.
Which
No,
is
he's
why
on-
he
he's
gets
the
the
Empire.
correct lighting. Ready?
I had the tabs open in the wrong sequence. Dolly.
Now that I look more human.
What?
Anyway, everybody needs a printer. Still,
No.
print out airline tickets.
No.
Things your kids want to turn into high school or middle
Printers are the
school.
devil. They never
Doesn't
work.
matter. It's an inexpensive duplex printer, inkjet, fast. Can do duplex scanning as well. It can go up to 11 by 17, and it's only $199.
11 by 17 is pretty impressive also.
It's damn impressive. $199.99. I mean, sure, ink does cost a bit, but you know they've improved the Annabella stuff, and it's not as horrific as it used to be. But you know what? It's kind of nice to be able to scan 11 by 17. It's nice to be able to print 11 by 17. What really stinks, though, I have to
Drivers?
disable the Brother software on my computer. Otherwise, when I start playing games, it crashes. because
printers.
Yeah.
Awful.
Are you
Printers,
recommending
right
this
there.
printer?
Hey, you know what? It's a good tool. You just got to learn how to use it.
How long have you had this printer?
Year?
Oh, okay.
Oh, it hasn't gone on fire yet.
No, it has not caught on
That's-
I have
fire.
literally
Seems
seen a
very
brother printer
suspect.
catch on fire.
But I just do realize that, you know what? You turn off the software that runs in your little taskbar that tells you, hey, your ink is low, and things run fine, and you can still print.
It's more like you're playing a game. No, crash.
Yeah, that sucks. That's before I realized that the Brother software blows. But the hardware is pretty good.
That's how old printers are. The hardware's always
that is correct.
The hardware's
All
always
printers
fine.
are like this.
because as it turns out, we know how to make inkjet printers. Apparently, we just can't make software that interfaces with them. Sorry,
Yes.
I really hate printers.
Oh, printers are. That is why I am employed at a company, is because printers just don't effing work.
PC load loader.
Yeah. So there you have it. $199
Alan,
for
now it can be
more.
your turn.
Now. So you guys got like a bunch of Amazon boxes lying around, right?
Nope.
Nope.
Well, y'all suck then.
I recycled them out.
Where's Sebastian? I know he's got Amazon
gone.
boxes lying around.
He gone.
He gone? Oh, okay. Well, other people listening to podcasts might have those boxes. And, like, you don't want them taking up space. You may not be able to get to the recycler so often. You start breaking them down, and then you realize, hey, wait, if I'm, like, selling other stuff on eBay, I can, like, use the boxes, but I want to break them down, but then I don't know how big they are. Like, because they're all broken down in a pile. And, like, you're fishing through the pile, and I'm like, I started realizing, like, hey, there's codes on these boxes. It's got to be sort of like someone's made a list of these codes and what the dimensions were. So you can just look it up and then look for the code, and then you've, poof, got the right size box. Well, somebody did. And,
Why in the hell would you have that many boxes?
what do you mean? Just stuff gets shipped to your house and Amazon and, like, from Amazon?
Do you not have recycling?
I have recycling, and I do throw the boxes away often. But, you know, if you have a need to, you know, store some stuff with those boxes or ship some stuff off, like,
Sure.
How are there that
Yeah.
many boxes?
there's all sorts of different box
Oh,
codes.
there are many boxes.
Yeah.
There needs to
In my
be a
father's
phone app for
house,
this, so
there
I
are many
can,
boxes.
like,
This box is yours.
it needs to be able to have a camera that looks at the codes on the boxes and presents to you the data as you move over them.
Oh,
right?
you
Like
want
an
augmented
reality.
Yeah, you want AR Amazon box
Yeah.
dimension pop up.
Yeah, if I have to go to a website and look up a frickin' table, that's not as useful.
Well, you know.
When I'm just looking at the giant stack of boxes, I want tell whoever made that website that we need augmented reality, Google goggles
Intel
style
RealSense.
setup.
Yeah, you could use RealSense and you just like take a
RealSense.
picture. You take a
Yeah.
picture of what you want to pack.
Yeah,
and it
the
tells you what Amazon.
The
box
real
is
sense
in.
thing should just do it all for
Yes.
you. Like, here's your dimensions.
Exactly.
Okay,
Man.
get this box.
Intel should hire us.
They should.
We'd be pretty good at this. They just
Oh, yeah.
fired 12,000 people. Keep in mind. So
So there's room for me.
Yeah, so there's
And
room.
one of them was the guy
with
working.
$1,700 processors. Come on, the profit margin.
One of those guys they
That's true.
fired was working on the RealSense Amazon box app, and now it's just gone.
Nah, this is a growth business. They'll hire us.
Oh, okay.
let's see. It's in the cloud. That's all we got to say, and then boom, instant money.
Augmented reality cloud.
Do you have a website?
Real sense.
VR ready. 18.6 million colors.
Look at this.
We're done.
My bottle got beat up. Look at that.
What'd you do?
How'd that happen?
Do it.
It was in my backpack when I was in downtown Macau and in Hong
That's
Kong
weak.
yesterday.
Was it
And
in
the
there?
paint just chipped off of it really easily.
Was it in there with a brick?
No.
No, it's because the bottle was designed with asynchronous
Paint.
Asynchronous coating.
exactly.
Yes.
What
I
what do you call
obviously
this
don't
type of
understand
bottle
it.
that has the
Oh wow.
What is that?
That's HSA.
I think that's it. Like you open it and then you close it and then you do that and it creates like an airtight seal.
A vacuum.
Yeah, creates the vacuum. Like
Interesting.
so. Anyway, is that it? Are we done now for our show? Sebastian's
I
not
hope
here to
so.
give us his pick. So
Yeah, so I guess I'll have to wait till later.
sorry, Sebastian.
Oh, well.
Yeah, his crying
what's
kid's
the name
a lot
of the
closer than
fluid that
yours
you
is.
not that you put on a rag and you cover a child's face and it falls asleep?
Chloroform.
Ether.
Chloroform.
That's chloroform or ether.
He thinks that's a great thing.
Although I don't think
Yeah.
it actually like works for that purpose.
Oh,
Oh,
it
it
will.
works.
Sorta does.
I don't know.
Yeah.
If he
Child
suffocates someone
services
with a
might have a word
rag,
with
All right,
you.
Larry,
Sure.
we're done. Let's end the show. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. A quick reminder, pcper.com/podcast. Find all the back episodes and all the ways to subscribe to either the audio or the video versions of the show. Patreon.com/PCper if you want to help support us. And PCper.com/subscribe if you want to sign up for the email list so that you know whenever we are doing live events, whether it be our podcasts, live streams, or other stupid things like that. Thanks for hanging out. I know it was a long episode, but my internet is better than Josh's. And
No,
I
it's
would like
not.
to-
Mine is
to leave it at
fantastic
that.
tonight.
Yep.
I'm Ryan Shrout.
I'm Jeremy Hellstrom.
I'm Josh with highly improved internet functionality.
And I'm Allyn Malventano.
Bye.
If you enjoyed this content, consider supporting in-depth technical content by contributing at patreon.com/PCper.